Welcome to Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. It's Will. It's another interview, and it's a very exciting interview, an exciting day. We have with us the actor Michael Chan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So when we were introduced by Arna Venema, and Arna calls you Mike, do you go by Michael or Mike? Do you prefer one or the other?
I have no preference.
Okay.
I've I have no preference. In all my credits and all my numerous work I work with Arna, he prefers calling me Mike Chan.
Okay.
He always credits me as Mike Chan. Look it up, and
That's,
that's absolutely fine with me. I have two names. I have Michael Chan and I have Mike Chan officially.
oh,
Apparently,
do you really? Yeah, I guess because if he credits you officially, then it would go on like IMDb, wouldn't it? As Mike Chan versus Michael or something like that?
in films usually it goes back to Michael for some reason.
Okay.
They kind of combine together. It's even more complicated on the Hong Kong MDB. It's called HKMDB.
Yeah.
They have my both of my names. My Chinese name. I have a stage name. I think I've had this stage name since 2014 or so. So before that, I was credited as my original name, Chen Zijun in Cantonese, and after that, I switched to my stage name, which is Chen Yunhei. And anyways, it's a bit confusing in Chinese as well.
Okay. So just accept that you have multiple names, I guess, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we've been emailing just to anyone who's listening to let them know, emailing and texting and stuff for a couple weeks, and in the midst of that, you've told me like a lot about all the movies that you've been in and kind of little stories and stuff like that. And every time I go back to the info you sent me, there's something different that I want to lead with. Like it was really hard for me to pick like an intro question. Um,
Okay.
so the one that I landed on was maybe a little bit unorthodox, given that this is a focus on Hong Kong cinema. But I have to preface this by saying that when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of Wesley Snipes. Um,
You came across that.
yeah, I came across that. Like I love Demolition Man and like Passenger 57 and stuff. And so you were
Uh-huh.
in The Art of War.
Yes, that
And
is
was that
correct.
your first movie?
Yeah, I think that's my very first movie in North America. I was still, kind of a kid back then, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, The Art of War. I played like a young Asian triad, and it's a very short scene, but it's an important one because I drop a bomb in a cafe, like a canteen or a diner.
It's in like a diner, right? Yeah, I so
Yeah.
to let you know, I actually rewatched that movie last night.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, that's him. Yeah. But it's a pretty amazing scene, like when the car comes driving into the diner and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. It's I mean, so what like as a first experience, what would to because that was like a pretty big movie, I think, when it came out.
Yeah, it was fairly big. That kind of yeah, that was very interesting. I'll tell you how I got the role actually.
Okay.
Because the movie was shot in Montreal and required a lot of Asian background actors. Um, they kind of hired, well, they went through a lot of people, and eventually they found me to help out with casting. So my main duty was to call all these extras or background actors and tell them, hey, remember, this coming Friday we're gonna shoot this scene. Remember to wear a tux, wear your suit, bring this, bring that, don't do this, remember, well groomed, shaven, your hair done, blah blah blah. And I had to call hundreds of people, literally
Jeez.
hundreds.
That must have taken forever.
Yeah, I needed help because some of these guys from they were not all actors. They were recruited or found in Chinatown or in the Chinese community, and that's why I was the one to kind of translate, well, to make those calls, and I helped out with translation on set, um, next to Christian Duguay, if I remember correctly, and then
Yeah, he's the
yeah,
director, right?
eventually, yeah, that's correct.
And he's
And
Canadian too. Yeah, I remember seeing that on IMDb. Yeah.
yeah, I found out only after because I was still relatively young and new in the industry. I knew no one, but eventually casting agency, well, the guys next to me, they were like, "Hey, we hired you for all these phone calls and stuff, but wouldn't you be interested in shooting? I'm like, of course. What can I do? I had zero idea. I knew I wanted to pursue a career in cinema, precisely, well, in front or behind the camera, but I didn't know how or when. So that was a good opportunity to for me to be a casting assistant, I guess. And eventually, they just put me in the room. And like, okay, let me tell you the scene. Now pretend this, do that, and you're a triad, you're a bad guy, blah blah blah. And I just went with it, and I landed the job. Um,
That's
I
great.
mean,
And so it must have been really cool on that, like on your first job, basically, to see both sides of the camera.
absolutely, absolutely. I worked quite a few days on that film. Most of the scenes that where it required a lot of Asian background actors, I was on set, helping out with translation on set. And before that, I worked a lot in the office in quote unquote pre-production. Um, yeah, so that was a very very interesting experience for me, and that helped me a lot with eventual work when I was doing casting, or when I was casting, for myself as an actor.
And so, did you get, because the cast in that movie is crazy? Did you meet all of the people who were? Because besides Wesley Snipes, there's Michael Biehn, who was in Terminator and Aliens, and Donald Sutherland is in it.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to meet all of these A-list actors because I was specifically only taking care or helping out with the Asian background actors. So I wasn't really involved with the whole pre-production. I was specifically selected. They put me in the room with a phone and a list of phone numbers to call, and so that was my thing. But remember, that was in 1997, I think, or 96 or 97.
So
I
that would have been
was
pre everyone getting messages on Facebook and stuff, right? For
Oh,
sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I had to physically call one by one. So that was very interesting. I think the movie came out in what, 1998
I think
or
it was either
2000, was
late. I think it was around 2000. Yeah.
2000. So we shot it in 1997 or 1998, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. Yeah, I didn't have a smartphone to take like tons of pictures back then, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. I know it's such a different world.
Exactly.
So,
And
well, so you're from Canada, is that correct?
I was born and raised in Canada. Correct.
And so, did you grow up watching like all the Hong Kong movies that were coming out, like the Jackie Chan stuff or the Chow Yun Fat stuff?
Um, Yeah, I did. I'm ready to bet one thing though. You may have watched more Hong Kong movies than I did before a certain time. Because
Okay.
in Montreal, okay, I grew up in the suburb. It's about an hour drive from Montreal downtown, from Chinatown, basically.
Okay.
For us to have access to tapes back then, VHS, we had to drive to Montreal once a week. My mom would send me and my siblings to Chinese school, and before after that, we would rent tape, and that's how I got to watch certain movies. I grew up with a lot of Jackie Chan, Chow Yun Fat, of course, Stephen Chow, Andy Lau, or Four Heavenly Kings, like including Aaron Kwok, Leon Lai, and Jackie Chung, of course, and
Hmm.
all these guys. But it was handpicked. My parents had to pick which movies they wanted to rent,
Oh
not
wow.
me, until a certain age,
Yeah.
right? So we would rent, if I remember correctly, between 4 and 8 tapes per week, and we would go through them at home during the week. It would be 4 movies and couple series of like TVB dramas. So the four cassette tapes were series, and four cassette tapes were movies. So it was 4 movies per week, more or less.
Okay. And was there like a video store that you would always go to?
Oh yeah, well locally, like in my town, yeah, I would go to. I had membership in both of them, so I could, access certain movies that was available. And yes, if the next question is, did you watch movies in French? I did. Arna's gonna laugh at this. Arna's gonna have a piss at me. He's like, "Oh, je m'appelle Vendôme." He's
Yes.
always teasing me with my French, and that's
Oh
fine.
man.
I love this guy.
Did you speak because as I told you, I'm from Vermont, so I know a little bit about French Canada. But are the schools bilingual? Are things French? Are things English? Like, what's the main language you speak on a daily basis, like when you're at school or whatever?
French,
Okay.
absolutely French. I picked up English really late in high school or so.
Oh
Before
wow.
that, it was only French, and I spoke Cantonese at home.
Okay.
My mom would drive us to Chinatown once a week for Chinese school, which is ended up being helpful. So I can now read some scripts. I read about 80% of Chinese scripts, and I could guess maybe 10%.
Okay.
And the rest I'll look it up now that I own a smartphone.
That's a lot
That
easier,
is,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So you were the movies you were watching dubbed in French, or would they have French subtitles? Or
They were dubbed in Quebec French. It's not even the French French. And then my other friends from Europe, they're gonna laugh at me because we speak a slightly different French.
yeah, it's funny. This same topic came up when I interviewed Arna, but I went to film school in LA, and we had to take an entertainment business affairs class.
Mhm.
And for one of my projects, I interviewed a woman who does international distribution for one of the studios, and she was saying that they have basically analytics showing that if you dub a movie in Canadian French, it will do 25% better at the box office in Canada than if you just release the French version,
Is
like
that
France
so?
French. Yeah.
That's interesting. Hmm.
So I mean, that's neither here nor there. But so you grew up watching all these films, and this was kind of my very long lead into my next question, which is, you were in two of the From Vegas to Macau films. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And Chow Yun-fat and Andy Lau and a lot of those people are in those movies, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Was that very surreal for you?
It was mind blowing. I've never really thought of, I'd get the chance to work with Wong Jing and Chow Yun Fat. And well, I've worked with Andy on something else before, Andy Lau, which is one of my childhood idol, to be honest. But meeting Chow Yun Fat was insane. To me, it was mind blowing. This is I if eventually one day I kind of become successful, I would have to thank a lot of older actors, including Chow Yun Fat, because he paved the road for most of the Asian actors nowadays. Anyways, but I really he's always had a very good reputation. My parents love him like since they were much younger. So for me, meeting him was extraordinaire.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
would
I
say.
can't even imagine. Honestly, it would just be like an out of body experience.
So I met Chow Yun Fat on set. Obviously, we said hi. He's super polite, by the way. Chow Yun Fat, like hands down, he's like one of the best um, actor to work with. He's super polite, super humble. He would walk in onto the set and he would literally say hi to everybody. He respects everybody.
Oh wow, that's. I mean,
Um,
it's great to hear
and
stuff like that about people that famous too.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. He has no bad character whatsoever. Just seriously, he is one of the best person I've ever worked with or learned from on set. Chow and Fat, hands down. And the reason why um, I got to meet him, actually, I got to meet him personally. We had like a little um, one-on-one little meeting thing offset. Well, on the set, but like hidden. And that's because of Chow Yun Fat's wife, Jasmine. We call her Fatso because Fat Go, Chow Yun Fat, Fat brother Fat is Fat Go, Fatso
Okay.
is sister-in-law Fat. So,
Oh, okay.
so we call her Fatso, and Fatso, I got her attention because I was speaking with another actor that is from Africa, I believe, and we spoke French. And she turned around, she's like, "Who's speaking French?" I'm like, "Oh, excuse me, what's wrong? Was I too loud?" It's like, "No, why do you speak French?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm from Montreal. I did my quick, like, short intro." It's like, "Wait a minute, come here, sit down." She sat me next to Wong Jing because
Wow,
they were
that's
behind the
wild.
monitor. They were behind the monitor, watching Fato do his stuff. And he's like, "Sit down, come talk to me." I'm like, "Okay." And on set, everyone respects Fatgo, but everyone's afraid of Fatso in a
Wow,
in a
really?
funny way, in a funny way, because she's very protective of Fatgo. again
Okay.
in a positive way.
It's like good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was really scared when she said, "Who's speaking French?" I'm like, "Oh my God, am I too loud?" That was me. I'm sorry. I apologize. No, no, no. Why do you speak French? Okay, come here, chat with me. I'm like, okay. And then I told her about like how I really respect Franco, sorry, Fat, and how I grew up with his movies. Once a Thief is still one of my favorite movies. Of course, The Killer, Hard Boiled, and all these guys, they're really good. But Once a Thief is one movie that I, for some reason, it kind of reminded me of my sister and brother because of my siblings. So that
Like the central group in the movie.
yeah, the central group with
Yeah.
Cherry Chong and Leslie Chung, and that little, not the love triangle thing, but that um, the way they interact as like brother and sister, adopted brother and sister, that reflected something to me
Yeah, it's a
apparently. So I
very
told
like I
her,
find that movie very endearing and very kind of sweet.
yeah, it's super sweet. It's it's actually super sweet. But anyways, I mentioned this movie. She's like, "Wow, you know this movie? You know that movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I grew up in, I had access to Chinatown and whatnot, blah blah blah." And I told her that I collect DVDs. I used to. Well, I have a lot of DVDs. I didn't get into Blu-rays yet, but anyway. So I told her I have like this special edition of Fat Girls movie. I have that one. I have this poster. I have that. Blah blah blah. I was like, wait a minute, you really do love my husband, huh? I'm like, well, yeah. She goes, well, why don't we do this? I'm gonna set you up and Fat Girl one on one just to meet him properly without all these people. Wang Jing, you don't know this, you know,
Yeah.
literally. So eventually, like a couple days in, next day that we work together because I'm not in all these scenes, I play one of Chow Yun Fat's guards or bodyguards,
Okay.
because anyway, and so I had numerous scenes with him or many days of shoot with him. So she goes, "Look, eventually, we'll set up something, and you bring your posters, bring your movies and stuff, and I'll get Fico to sign everything for you." I'm like,
That's
"Oh,
so
really?"
cool.
I became from um, a small actor on set to I'm your biggest fan, dude. And she gave me access to that. And I'll send you some pictures for fun.
Oh,
I
that's
took
great. Yeah.
pictures of all these DVDs. He wrote, like, "Hey dear Chan Yun Hey" in Chinese, best wishes, blah blah blah. And we had this little one-on-one meeting. Hey, what brought you back to Hong Kong? Why? And it was a whole wow. That's why hands down Chow Fat is one of my biggest influence to date.
That's so cool.
I have
Um,
so much respect for him.
and so you were did you play? Am I right in knowing that you played an Interpol agent in the third From Vegas to Macau? Is that right?
Yeah, that was a slightly smaller role. It's not a recurrent, it's not the actual same character. They just because I became friend, well, actually I've known the assistant directors for quite a while on several other shoots, and they just called me in for another casting. So I appear in it, but it's a even smaller appearance in it. Yeah.
Okay. And
I
so
did that just to meet Cho and Fat again.
just to hang out again, yeah.
Well, yeah, why not, right?
I mean, yeah, who wouldn't? But so speaking of assistant directing, maybe I'm going to take an odd turn here, but I read that you assistant directed Kung Fu Chefs. Is that correct?
Oh, that is correct.
And
Yes.
that's a Sammo Hung movie, right?
Yes, Sammo Hong,
so,
Vanessa Wu, Cherry Ying,
um,
and yeah,
so was that? I
yeah.
mean, what? Because I know that I don't know too much about this, but from everything that I've heard, assistant directing in Hong Kong is very different from what it is like in the Hollywood system. So, like, what exactly does an assistant director do on a Hong Kong film?
Hmm. Very interesting question. Remember when we talked about the art of war?
Yeah.
How everything. My first impression of working in cinema on a movie was very, very systematic. You had all these different departments. All these departments had a little crew or a big crew, and they do their thing. When I got to Hong Kong, it was kind of a little shock because everything's different. You don't take your time. Um, Even for lunch or dinner, I would I as a very small actor on The Art of War, I had like access to like roast beef and lobster, like catered everything, like trailer. And no, well, I didn't have my own trailer, but everything was catered, everything was clean, it was big. In Hong Kong, everything's different. You don't eat, it's not the same environment. Everything's fast paced. The crews are smaller. The movie doesn't take a year to produce or to make or to shoot. They take 15, 20, 25 days. I think Kung Fu Chef is
That's
shot
wild
about,
that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just that's crazy
yeah,
to me how quickly the movies are shot based on because I have a lot of friends who work in the industry here and the schedules are so long.
exactly. It's a very different working environment. And because of the budget, which would affect a lot of your resources,
Yeah.
Kung Fu Chef, we actually shot, I think, if I remember correctly, 47 days. I'm sorry, 37 days. It was a little over a month in China back then. So we have to cross
Oh
the
wow.
border, which is pretty close, but at the same time, I was away from home. Well, from my apartment. I live by myself in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I was away for about a month or so, a little more than a month. And so that was considered like, wow, you're shooting like over 30 days. That's crazy, dude. And I'm like, well,
That's
yeah,
like the
because
shortest Hollywood movie, right? It's like, yeah.
exactly. But that could be explained because it's an action movie, and action takes a lot of time to rehearse, to shoot. If you rehearse like a couple punches, a throw, and a flip, it's a lot of rehearsal, and it's a lot of shots for that, couple seconds. So shooting an action scene would require many days sometimes, especially with, all these big names like Bruce Leong,
Hmm.
Sammo Hong, Van Ness, etc. Louis Fan Si Wong. Yeah, all these guys are really, really cool. But yeah, that's why we shot a lot. And then we were out of town. We weren't shooting in Hong Kong. So that was a good experience.
So does everyone who work on that film come from Hong Kong or were they using people locally too in China?
Yeah, we had crew from China, definitely, because I work with well, the director is Ken Yip, a now a personal very good friend of mine,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
the producer is Sharon Yang Pan Pan. She's one of the first stunt women or stunt actress. She's, yeah, from many years ago. I couldn't name all her movies, but she's a teen boy. She's
An OG, is that
yeah, she's very OG.
okay.
So I got into the crew of Kung Fu Chefs because actually, yeah, I can rewind that from a year from there. You know Godfrey Ho
Oh yeah, of course.
from
Yeah.
Ninja movies?
Ninja Terminator, right? Is one of his movies.
Yes, he
Yep.
has many, the king of, cut and paste,
Yeah.
obviously. I actually met Arna through Godfrey. We met at film school. He was studying like filmmaking from Godfrey, and I was in the acting class from Godfrey.
Okay.
Eventually, Godfrey just pulled both of us from both classes, like, hey, you know what? You speak English, you speak English. You're a director, you're an actor. Meet yourself. And that's how we met. And we shot his final project.
That's a great introduction. So Godfrey was teaching both acting class and the filmmaking class.
That is correct. I was at the Hong Kong Film Academy back then. I don't think they're still around, or if they are, they may have changed their name. But that's where we met, Arna and I, and we became close to Godfrey. Every now and then we would meet up and, hey, Godfrey, you want to go for dim sum? Mike and I are Arna and I. We're gonna be available, so and so. Are you cool? Yeah, definitely. And just the three of us, we would hang out maybe once a month. Well, we used to do that maybe once a month or so.
That's super
Now a little
cool.
less frequent, but yeah, we were meant to meet up like pre-COVID, and that didn't happen. So yeah,
It seems like a lot of stuff, and Arnott was telling me like a lot of the plans that he laid for several months worth of work just went totally sideways when COVID showed up.
yeah, totally. I don't know if what he mentioned to you, but yeah, because it's his project, I'm not gonna get into those. But yeah, some of these projects I was supposed to be involved with as well. And pity, they're either pushed back to 2021 or we don't know if it's going to be postponed or
Just
canceled,
kind
to
of,
be honest.
yeah.
So, but hey, these are the cards we were dealt. Let's just keep playing.
That's a great attitude. Well, and it also ties into From Vegas to Macau, the gambling, right?
That's right. That's right.
um,
Hey,
so, but speaking of Arna, so the way that Arna introduced me to you, not obviously via email, but like the way he first told me about you was he sent me Sifu versus Vampire,
yeah,
which is a completely insane movie. Um, and which is
it's
a
fun, huh?
Wong Jing. I loved that movie, which I think I told you, but that kind of like just off the wall insanity. I just love that stuff. It's totally mental. Um, and that's another. So, and was that movie before or that was after From Vegas to Macau, wasn't it, or was it?
That was after, right?
Yeah. And so, did you on From Vegas to Macau? Did you know Wong Jing at all? Like, did you become like, did he recognize you from the two projects, or were you involved differently than
I was involved differently. From Vegas to Macau, it was my agent that sent me to an audition, and luckily I landed like a role in it. Um, and the real reason why I really wanted to pick, to take this project, although it was a very side or supporting actor or role, is mainly because of Chow Fat. Once in a lifetime, I really, 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 genuinely wanted to meet the guy. So I picked up that movie. Wong Jing and I, we never were close. I'm not gonna pretend I'm like best pal with him,
that?
but
Yeah.
no, I don't know if he ever remembered me from Vegas to Macau because I had such a small, you know, not super important role in it. But and also because the first time he saw me on set on Sifu versus Vampire, I was all dressed.
Did you have all the makeup on and everything?
Absolutely,
So
because
you play like the ancient vampire in that movie, right?
yeah, the Vampire King or the grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, the great grandfather actually, Tycho.
Um, so that I mean, how much makeup was involved in getting into that character?
A lot. They had molds of my hands and forearm. They had a mold of my face, of my skull. Um, so every day, just getting into makeup would take about 4 hours, and that took
Oh
four
man,
people. Four people,
four people.
one on yep, one on each arm to put all that um, whatever it's called, the special effect makeup. That's actually it's like I wish they would have went with a glove. That would have been like so much easier. But they literally had a fake skin for my arms, my hands, back and forth, and then for my face, for the back of my head, every single day it was a different one. It was a new one.
Wow.
And they had to glue the actual like the very long nails onto my real nails. Um,
Jeez.
so it took two guys, one on each arm, for about 3 to 4 hours, give or take, and two more to do my face and the back of my head and the wig or the thick hair in the back. You know how like the old school Gumsi, they have like that like little like ponytail thing,
Yeah.
that extra long hair thing. So I had someone just for that. So every day it took about 4 hours to get into makeup, and then after work it would take at least an hour for 2 to 3 people, the same guys, to take it off me.
So 5 hours a day to become and then unbecome the vampire.
Yep, and we would shoot roughly 12 hours. We would start as soon as it gets dark, and we would wrap the day as soon as it gets too clear, like too bright.
Jeez.
So we really had to maximize our shooting time. Also to mention is my involvement in Sifu versus Vampire was a little particular. It was special because it was a reshoot. The original
Okay.
movie was all wrapped, but they had previously they decided to go with a hopping vampire. Wong Jing realized watching the rushes or in the editing room that it wasn't strong enough. The Vampire King, from what I heard from the crew, from the assistant directors and all, is that it wasn't intimidating enough. You didn't need all of these. Like the cast is a lot of fun. It's Yuen Biao, Philip Ng, Ronald Chang, and all these other
It's a
actors.
great cast. Yeah.
It's a great cast. It's a fun cast. But all these guys, they're if they're fighting a quote unquote like a hopping vampire, there's nothing really that intimidating. Like Yuen Biao himself, his intro and all. If you watch a movie again, he's really he's top notch. He's experienced. He could have handled a, you know, hopping vampire more easily by just putting that yellow piece of paper on his forehead or something.
Yeah.
So that's why I think they were in post production. They realized that they maybe it was a good thing to reshoot with a different vampire. The way I was told to act it out was think of a zombie slash Spider-Man or Wolverine. Just go
Oh man,
crazy.
that's amazing
And that,
instructions.
well, yeah, that gave me a lot of freedom and not a lot of restrictions,
Yeah.
especially because it was a reshoot. So if they didn't like the conventional hopping vampire, I mean, I love these vampires as well, but having the opportunity to play the hopping vampire versus the crazy like vampire on meth,
The
wow.
Wolverine zombie vampire.
Exactly.
That's so
So
amazing.
I was like, whoa, I'll do that, sure. And I
Um,
didn't even have to go through casting or anything. I was introduced by the assistant like action director, and I've been approved, of course, by action choreographer and by Wong Jing, etc. So
and so
yeah,
was
that
that
was
someone you were friends with previously? The person who introduced you to the.
yes, yes, Chu Sifu, Sifu Chu. His last name is Chu. Um, he's again one of the OGs. He's done like so many good movies. He's very, very experienced. And again, I'm fortunate to have worked with so many nice people, and I thank him here. Um,
It must be
I
amazing
was
to. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, 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 no. I was heading home. I used to live in like a more industrial area, in Thai culture. It's near Mongkok, if you know a bit of Hong Kong. And one night, as I was walking home, I heard people screaming, "Three, two, one, rolling, action!" So I went to see, by curiosity, and I ran into these guys shooting. I think it was like a little scene for TVB because Chu Sifu Chu, he works for TVB as well occasionally,
Okay.
and apparently they were doing some wired stuff. So there were a lot of stunt guys around. And he was there. He's like, "Hey, Michael, I worked with him on several projects. I can't remember the first one, but eventually, I went and say hi. I'm like, "Hey, Juicy Fu, how's it going? What are you guys shooting? Oh, we're shooting this, that, that." So I hung out because it's really, really close to my house, anyways, in the middle of the night, and we started chatting when he had a break. I'm like, "Hey, man, if you have any job for me, just let me know." I was like, "Hey, actually, maybe you would fit that one job. Let me get back to you." I'm like, "Okay, whatever it is. If you say I'm capable, I'll do it." And that's how he called me back. He's like, well, actually, he explained to me the whole reshooting stuff. It's like, okay, Michael, I know you're an actor more than a stuntman. If you don't mind, there's going to be a lot of heavy makeup involved. We're not going to see your face. You're not recognizable. Are you okay with that? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I have no problem with that. I'm an actor. I'll do whatever it takes. And then he goes, but it's a really tough job. I'm like, well, how hard is it to play a gong si just hopping around? He's like,
Yeah.
nope. He's like, that's the instruction, the original instruction. Like, just go crazy. I'm like, okay. So what are we talking about? Do you think I'm capable? First of all, I was like, yeah, but there's gonna be a lot of wired work involved. We're gonna hang you. You're gonna fly around. You're gonna do. There's gonna be part of it CG and part of it's gonna be like real life. I'm like, okay, sign me up. And after they approved me, they checked out my back then show reel. They looked me up. Um, they were okay with hiring me, to say the least. because
Okay.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it
But that
is wire work something that you've done before? Or like have you do you have experience in because I watched your show reel and there's a fair amount of fighting in there. Do you have like a martial arts background?
yeah, I would say I have some martial art background to some extent. Back to when I grew up in the suburbs of Montreal, I didn't have access to a lot of martial arts schools. So I had to watch a lot of movies and train on my own. I watched a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme as well. And
Okay.
that's how after school I would go home and just make myself some snacks or some toast. I would just spread my legs on the floor. I would stretch while watching TV and eating my snack. And that's how I kind of developed my own split. Right now, it's not like
It's like
it's not a
in that
big
scene in
thing.
Bloodsport where he's like splitting between the chairs.
Yeah. But back then, growing up, like in high school, doing the split was either something you're ashamed of or something that's really cool, especially, growing up being the only Asian guy in town. Um, so that's how basically I got to meet some of my friends that were also into martial arts. And we started training a lot. And eventually I wanted to learn how to backflip. I was watching, let's say, Rumble in the Bronx
Okay.
or certain flips, certain kicks. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how? I want to do that. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to kill someone with that. I just want to do it.
Yeah,
Really.
that's
growing
awesome.
up, growing up as the only Chinese kid, the kids around me would ask me, "Hey, you're Chinese, right? Do you know kung fu?" At first, when I was 6, I was 8, I was 10, I would just lift my leg and pretend to like a very sloppy kick, and that would pass. At 12, at 14, other kids, some of the kids have started going to karate classes and taekwondo. So that little sloppy kick lifting your leg isn't going to scare anyone.
It's
I
not
really
enough
had to
anymore,
up
right?
my
Yeah.
game. I really had to up my game. And having interest in films and stuff, I started watching movies and pausing and go frame by frame. Remember on the VHS, it's
Oh yeah,
possible. You can
yeah,
pause and play the same button, and then you could tuck, 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 and go frame, so to speak, frame by
yeah.
frame.
So slowly.
And
Yep.
I would look at the let's say just a roundhouse kick. Like, how do you make it look so good? Oh, like okay, here you pivot. Okay, here you lift your toes, blah blah blah. And I would mimic those. And at those time, I had access to a high 8 camera. My parents had bought one
Oh wow.
when they went back to Hong Kong and they went to Thailand and stuff. So they bought the camera, and I just kind of borrowed it without
So to
asking.
speak. Yeah.
There was a tripod, and I figured out how to work the camera and stuff. I would put like a bottle of water there. Okay, if I pass this, we're not gonna see me. Okay, if I pass the other side, the other end, after that, like throw a lunchbox there.
To
If
like
I
mark
pass
off
the
your little
lunchbox,
frame. Yeah.
exactly, that was my framing. That was my
That's
framing
awesome.
in my yard. And eventually, that would be fun if I can find those now that I'm in Canada, actually. But that would be so much fun. But anyways, so that's how I started kicking around. I just did some goofy, silly kicks and whatever move and posing and whatever I thought was cool. I would just do it in my backyard because nobody's there to laugh at me, right?
It's
So
the
and
best place to practice, right? There's no scrutiny.
exactly, and I had all the time in the world. That was no distractions, no smartphone, no social media, no WhatsApp. I was just after school. I would just like, do my split, stretch up. I'm done. Go outside and train, and that was my training. Um, and I would go back inside and plug all these wires, the RCA cables, and blah blah. And I would just watch. I was like, oh no no no, that's not good. Oh, that's really bad. No, my friends can't see that. And I had to work
You'd
on
pick
those.
out like the best takes.
Not even. I didn't really have access to dubbing. I mean, I could bring like my mom or my parents' rooms VHS out and do some transfer, but I wasn't into editing yet. I was just into like shooting and reusing the same tape. I didn't have access to a lot of tape. in the early stages. So, I would just like rewind, okay, scratch all of that. It's too ugly anyways. I don't want to keep that. And I don't have many other cassette tapes. So I would just reuse them
That's great.
again and again.
When it get like grainier and grainier with each generation of reusing
Yes,
them.
it did. It did. It did. If I can find a certain box, like probably in the basement, I'll keep you posted if I
Okay.
ever find anything in
I
it.
mean, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I would love to see that.
I would love to see that too, because I
Right.
think I bought my what's the format before like what high eight? What's after high eight? Mini
Is it?
DV. Is it called mini
Oh yeah,
DV?
those little discs. Yeah.
Um, I
Is
think
that it?
no 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 no. It's another tape. Anyways, cut
Is it
this
the
off.
small, like the small tape that goes inside the
Yeah,
bigger tape to go in the VCR? Yeah.
it was along the line. I can't remember what it's called. It's been so
I
long,
know
like
what you're talking about.
20.
Yeah, but I never knew. The only thing that I had when I was younger was like a VHS camera that
Hmm.
was like the big. It was like it was a big one that looked like the ones that you would see like an on the scene like news video person
Right,
holding. So I would
right.
you would put it on your shoulder and it had like the big eyepiece.
Was that
Um,
a one piece or was it separate?
no, it was one big thing. So my
Okay.
grandfather was he was I think he was like the manager of a JC Penney's, or he worked at JC Penney's corporate or whatever. So whenever they would get like new products in, they would give them to him.
Hmm.
So he got this camcorder at some point because JC Penney's was selling it, and he gave it to my
Oh.
dad. And then I think like you, I quote unquote borrowed it from my dad. And it was just this one kind of like big lumbering. It was almost like bronze in color, and it would had a thing on the side that popped out almost like the top of those VCRs where the tape comes out the top,
Right,
and
right,
you would
right.
put the tape in there. Yeah, and then it had like a little eye piece that you would look through.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
It was a big camera, yeah. But it was really fun. Like it had a handle too on the top, like a boombox kind of, so I could like
Yeah,
carry it
yeah,
around with me. Yeah. So so you go from making the backyard movies to in 2015 you were in Wild City, the Ringo Lam movie.
yeah. I think it was yeah, around 2015. I think
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Which is yeah,
Sorry.
it's I mean it's well the release dates are interesting for me because they're usually different in the US than they are in Hong Kong. And when you look it up online, it's like some resources will have the Hong Kong release date and some will have the US release date. So
Right.
but I
It's around
really,
those
really
eras. Yeah.
liked that movie. I feel like I remember watching that movie, really liking it, and then seeing some reviews that weren't as positive and being kind of confused by it. But I mean, obviously directed by Ringo Lam, who did so many amazing films.
Hmm.
And did you have like a relationship with him when you made that film?
Not on Wild City. It was more on Sky on Fire when I had a callback from the directing team or assistant director. Like, hey, we really liked you. Ringo was like really cool with having you on set. Would you be keen to come and audition for something else? I'm like, absolutely. So that's how I
Yeah, who would
got
say no to
involved.
that call?
Exactly. But that's how I got to work, on two movies with Ringo back to back. Well, unfortunately, it was the last two movies, but I learned a lot with him, especially on Sky on Fire because they really called me and they offered me a small supporting role. I was next to Daniel Wu on the
Okay.
same team. I was the youngest member of the small crew of four. So, anyways, we had like in the team among the team we had like particular character, um, and that was how it was a very interesting experience and learning phase to be working with Ringo and having directions from Ringo. It's like, no, Michael, you should do this like this. Look, analyze this. It didn't happen a lot, but he would spend some time with me. It's like, Daniel Wu, he's a lead. His character is gonna be, heroic. He's gonna do this. He's gonna look cool and stuff. You got the older guy. He's a little more sloppy. He doesn't care. He only all his motivation is the paycheck. You got the other girl. She's super this and that, and you're gonna have to come in and and separate, differentiate, stand out from these guys. And just that took maybe like 5 minutes from Ringo, but it
Hmm.
marked me forever. I'm like, okay, um, yeah,
And
and
it has
he's
you
a,
thinking about like the dynamics of the team, right? Not just like your own character and stuff.
exactly. So all of my scenes, most of my scenes were surrounding all these few characters. So working with them correctly and complementing each other in terms of character and acting was very cool. And having Ringo telling me like all these small details, I really appreciated that.
It must have been incredible. Yeah, I mean, I mean, imagine that would be a very. I mean, were his movies that you watched growing up as well, or
Yes, but back then when I grew up, I didn't read a lot of Chinese and I didn't know all these names. I didn't have access to a lot of news from or the entertainment industry from Hong Kong. So I didn't know all these directors' names, all these screenwriters' names. Um, I even with the VHS, I wouldn't be able to read, or I would just skip like all these credits,
yeah.
unfortunately, because I couldn't read them. And their
Hmm.
names are all like, written like Ching Chang Chong Chong. So it wasn't like just a mess to me too. Dude, I'm telling you, I was born and raised here. I'm a little more Quebecois than Chinese to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then so I would have to ignore all these credits and just see, oh, Jackie Chan, and recognize like Seng Long, these two characters being Jackie Chan. I didn't even know how to read it, but I recognized those symbols at first.
Hmm.
So that's why growing up, I always had a hard time placing which director to which movie and which English title to which Chinese title. It's a lot of
Yeah,
confusion
and there's so many alternate titles too that I
as
imagine that like
well.
gets even more confused. Like especially with that some of like the Shaw Brothers movies where they have like four titles and you're like, what is going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
So
So, but I remember you mentioned Van Damme? Didn't and I might be wrong about this, but didn't Ringo Lam direct a couple Van Damme movies?
yeah, he
I
did.
feel like he did.
Was it Knockoff?
Yeah,
No,
or
wait, was
was
that
that
True
him?
Heart? No, that
And
was
then
True Heart. My
From
bad, my bad.
Hell was it? Is it In Hell? In Hell is that the Van Damme movie where he's in prison?
Oh, think
That did Ringo
I
Lam direct
think
that?
s-
And Maximum Risk,
I'm
maybe?
I think Maximum Risk. You're
I'm
right.
also getting confused about which ones Choi Hart did and which ones Ringo Lam did.
Exactly.
Yeah, because then
I think
one of them did the movie with Dennis Rodman. Was that Choi Hart? What was
now you're
that
getting
movie?
me confused.
Double Team with with Van
Double
Damme and Dennis
double
Rodman.
team. Yeah, yeah, double team, double team. Holy wow. I have to revisit all of these guys at some point.
It's
Wow.
I've just been so someone. The only reason I can call this all to mind is because someone asked me on YouTube recently if I would do a video talking about Van Damme's movies that were made by Hong Kong filmmakers, and so I had to go and kind of like sit down and figure out which ones they were.
Right.
Um, Oh, here we go. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was just looking it up on IMDb. So yeah, so Maximum Risk was Ringo Lam, and so was Replicant.
Oh, the replicant. I
Yeah,
own that on DVD.
I don't think I've ever
I mean
seen that
VCD,
movie.
sorry.
Oh wow,
VCD.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
I'm gonna have to look it up, but
Um,
I'm gonna have to be honest. I don't think I've ever watched that, The Replicant. I
well, at
bought
least
it
you
on a
have it, right?
yeah. I think I came to Hong Kong that summer or something, and I think it's even a pirated DVD, a VCD. I don't think that movie was officially released yet,
That's even
but
better.
well, that's a collect,
Yeah,
that goes into the collection.
you
But
should have Van Damme sign it, find him, and have him sign it.
yeah, next time I work with him or I hang out with him, I trained with Van Damme once.
Did you really?
Yeah, I think he
Did you
had
speak
like
in
a
French with him?
yes, first time or second time meeting him. He was like, "Oh, bonjour, Monsieur Van Damme. Appelle-moi Jean-Claude." That guy was like, "Hey, Mr. Van Damme." I was like, "Call me Jean-Claude."
That's awesome.
He's really cool. He's
Yeah,
really
Arna
cool.
was
What?
telling me that I guess he's met or he knows Van Damme or has met him several times, and he says he's like like a pretty fun guy to hang out with.
Yeah, he's unpredictable though. He would make a joke. He would. maybe be mad at you real quick, and a split second later he's burst out laughing, and the whole room is like dead cold. Like, oh my god, did we piss off Van Damme? Bah, c'est une blague. Haha.
He's just messing with your head.
He's messing with a
Oh
lot
man,
of people's
and is
heads.
he does he get terrifying? Like is he intimidating when he pretends he's being mad?
Well, not to me. I
Yeah,
would. He didn't do anything to me that
that's
day
so funny.
when we were training. Um, I think at some point he wanted to have like online courses, like training with Jean Claude or JCVD, and I think Arna directed or shot the whole training
Oh
session, and
wow.
I was called on board. Like, hey, you want to train with Van Damme? Like, yeah, get out of here. No, no, seriously, Van Damme, you want to train with him? Yeah,
Yeah, but so that's another one of those things where it's like, well, who would say no to that?
exactly. I'm like, I don't care how busy I am. I'll reschedule. I'll
Yeah.
reschedule my own birthday if I have to.
Just
Right?
cancel it. Yeah, sorry guys, it's not happening this year. I have to hang out with Van Damme.
Nah, see you next year. So we met up in his like gym thing, and yeah, we set up the camera, and he's like super cool. He's like, hey, like, yeah, give me a minute. I'm just gonna like, mentally prepare. We waited downstairs of his apartment for about what, 2 hours,
Oh wow.
3 hours. At some point, we were like the whole crew. We were just thinking like, you know what? I don't think it's happening today.
He just went out the window.
He just no, I don't think he wants to come down. So I thought he wanted to train, like training with Jean Claude. Do you want to train? Yeah, we won. No, Jean Claude, no training today. So eventually he came down, and he was like super nice. We waited, but it was okay. It is Jean Claude, right?
But I mean, of course you're gonna
So
wait for him. Yeah.
so we went through the training, and it's very simple, very basic. It was more like a teaser for you know just gathering some footage for him to edit a little something to. I don't know if it happened or not, whether it was like online course for members or something, or if that project ever took off. I'm not sure, but I did train with Jean Claude,
And
so
does
yeah,
does he live in Hong Kong?
I think so. I would say so. He's based in Hong Kong. He definitely owns like several properties in Hong Kong. Um, at some point, it was a rumor, and then the rumor was that he lived in Wan Chai. That may or may not be true, but when I met him, it was on Kowloon side, so it wasn't like in Wan Chai area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a total left turn from Van Damme, but you were in a movie called Love Stock. Is that correct? And
Yes.
I heard that the writer and director of that movie threw up on your shoes at some point.
Yeah, that's a very first impression actually. I think that was a rap party of something called like the 48 hour film festival,
Okay.
which you are giving 48 hours and a topic and certain restrictions or criteria, and you have to shoot a short film that lasts for X amount of time. And anyways, so we met up. I didn't work with him that year. That's the year I met him though, I think. Yeah. So after the shoot, after everything, 2 days non-sleep, just filming, editing, and rendering. Eventually, there was the award, the film festival's like rap party or something. Ran into Joe again. It's like, hey, how's it going? And that party boy literally just came to Hong Kong. It's like, oh, he's from New York, right? Or the suburbs of New York. Goes to Hong Kong. He goes crazy. He drinks a lot, but he's not very tolerant. I'm Asian, but I can drink.
Okay.
Okay. So at some point we're like, okay, what's with this guy? I was obviously with Arna and stuff. I'm like, what's with this guy? Like, I can't put my finger on him. Is he weird, or is he like just like, do I want to push him away, or do
Is
I
he
want to take
weird?
care of this guy? Is he weird? Like, what's with this guy? He's not, he's friendly, especially drunk, but overall, he's like a very nice guy. But he's just mental. What do I do with this? Look, near the end of the night, we found out that Joe was like kind of missing. I'm like, where did he go? He's new in town. We're just afraid. Just we're nice people. We
Worried
take
he
care
like
of people.
disappeared or something. Yeah.
I think he was stuck in like there's a back door with like a secret garden thing. I think he was locked out there or
Oh
something.
no.
Um, and I went to pick him up and stuff, and he threw up like my shoes and stuff. I'm like,
Oh.
oh my God, am I pissed at you or am I like sorry that you're so drunk? I don't know. Am I angry now? And I mean shoes. Well, yeah, I was a little upset, but I'm just trying to take care of the guy because apparently he's not, he's he's not a bad person. He's just having a good time. And
Too
anyways,
much
if
of
you
a
ask,
good time, right?
yeah, and you can't exactly blame him for that. That's a natural response. It's not a fault ish.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, that was crazy. We had to pick him up from he slipped from like the bench. He slipped under a table. It's dark in the club. We had to pick him up like several occasions. Eventually I had to put him in a cab after he puked in my shoe. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. Where do you live? Do you have your address? Tell me. I figure out his address. I put him in a cab. I'm like, do you have cash on you? I'm like, taxi driver, please bring this guy to this address. I don't know, like seriously, I'll pay you a little more, whatever. It's like really close anyway. It was from
Okay.
Lan Kwai Fong to Soho. It's like uh it's an equivalent of like 10, $15. At that time it was like about like 20, $30 Hong Kong, which is like about 5, 6 US.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Pretty
just
close
dude,
by. Yeah.
here you go, like $10 or whatever extra more. I'm like, just make sure my friend goes home safe. And I was stuck with like really dirty shoes. And we
um,
became really, really close friends, as a matter of fact.
yeah, that's what I mean. Arna, what's the thing that Arna always says about him? Oh, he takes no prisoners.
He takes no prisoners. Yeah, that's something they say between themselves. I'm like, what exactly does that mean? What's the inside joke? Did I miss an inside joke? He takes
um,
no prisoner.
they just like
Okay.
shouted at each other like a battle cry.
Something like that, I guess. Another thing that we used to say or sing, like a little jingle, is Joe Fiorello, why don't you come to your senses? That's another thing that we sing.
Like a mantra for him to learn to to come to his senses,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Did it?
Eventually, if you have the opportunity to meet him, you're gonna have a hell of a time, man.
I've been told, yeah. So Arna actually offered to bring him on with Arna, so I would talk to them both at the same time.
You're gonna have a great
Um,
time.
I've and yeah, I'm sure it'll be from what everything that Arna has told me, it'll be complete madness, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
So
think
you
we, yeah, go
you were
ahead.
talking about sorry, you were talking about Love Stock.
Yeah,
I
so I mean, I
think
don't know too much about that movie, but I was reading about it and I saw his name on it. And it looked kind of interesting.
hmm
Um,
I help out on Love Stock as well. So like first thing I think Joe got me and credited me like action choreographer, but it's not really an action movie. So I'm like, Joe, you don't have to put that on my IMDb. I'm like, I help you out with like like a neck lock or a hand choke and whatever you decided to use. I really don't need that big
action
of a
director,
credit.
sure.
Exactly. Well, because it's a romantic thriller. There isn't much action, so technically, I did 100% of the action.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are directing action, then it's your right. Yeah,
Oh well, fair enough. I just, yeah, the OGs are not gonna be happy with me with that credit
yeah,
if
right.
they
Like
ever watch a movie.
the guys who did all those Shaw Brothers movies. Um,
Exactly. Like, wow, what action? But one cool thing to mention about Love Stock is a little idea that Arna had about re-editing Love Stock into a ninja movie. I don't know if he told you
what?
about this.
No, this sounds amazing. Is this just like
Oh, did
Godfrey
he
Ho
not?
style? No.
Yes, that was exactly. We were thinking about um, re-editing it, and making it like a cut and paste movie and rebooting this genre.
Oh, that would be
So
amazing. Would it be called Love Ninja?
I don't know. I think it's gonna be called Muchi Muchi Ninja because I don't know if you're gonna if I'm allowed to tell you all this, so we'll
Oh,
see.
okay. All right. We'll
But
see. Yeah.
we actually did a fictional trailer with me in it with a sword and just making it like a ninja feel of it. I'll send you the link, or I'll ask
Oh,
Arna
yeah.
if
This
it's
sounds
okay to send.
amazing. Yeah.
I thought, I'm sorry, I don't know if you're gonna have to like cut this
No,
out,
that's
but
okay. Yeah.
I thought Arna would have told you that. If he didn't, whoa, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we mostly talked about horror movies when I talked to him, like on the
All
interview.
right,
So
and
we
not
didn't, I don't
ninja
think we
movies.
really like got onto that subject.
Yeah, the reason why I thought you were asking about, Muchi Muchi Ninja is because we mentioned Godfrey Ho previously. So that's
Yeah.
why
I
I
mean,
thought Godfrey Ho and Arna. So I thought, the term would be the ninja film that
it
we
sounds
wanted to
amazing.
kind of make. It
Um,
would be a really fun project. Um,
have you
I'll
been
see
working
if
on your ninja moves in the backyard?
well, I don't have much of a backyard in Hong Kong, but yes, I
Yeah.
train my ninja skills. I'll see if I can send you two links. I'll ask Arna first because
Okay.
I think he locked them with the password. I think you should watch those just for laughing giggles.
Yeah. It sounds pretty
Anyways,
amazing.
the ninja related stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, if we can wind down now if that's good for you. Is there anything else you want to like any projects that you have coming up that you're excited about, or is everything basically just on hold right now because of COVID?
Um, Everything's more or less on hold for now. And for those that are to be confirmed, it's too early to talk about them.
Oh yeah, you can't
So
really.
I may have to rephrase that. Well, so basically, I'm back in Montreal to spend some time with my family and take care of some business. This is COVID wave two here in Montreal. So I really wanted to be here with my parents and going through it with my family. I don't have many projects yet, but I'm considering trying out to work in the industry in Montreal and or Toronto. Actually, it's not too far.
Yeah,
So,
Toronto is a friend of mine works at he works for Fox, but Fox was bought by Disney.
hmm
So he technically works for Disney, and they're moving like because LA is still closed because the US has been such a disaster with COVID. They're basically moving everything to Canada.
oh really?
Yeah. So there's
Wow.
lots of productions, and like they can't get American, like one director wanted to have his American cinematographer come up for a project, and the Canadian government wouldn't let him in. So like everyone is Canadian working on these shows and movies.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think Canada is a little safer or a little more relaxed on COVID restrictions in terms of filming. Um, so I was told, I was introduced by some of our friends in the industry, referred to some guys in Toronto and in Vancouver, eventually to work in Canada. Since I'm here, I should just go back in training. I do have a backyard here, so
And I mean,
I'm gonna.
you can use your phone as your camera this time, right?
Exactly. I have more than one phone, multi-angle. I can
Nice.
even edit. I have the skills now.
You could make
So
your
yeah, I
own. You
should
could
probably
make a
just get back in
backyard ninja
training.
movie. Um,
Absolutely.
oh man, the possibilities are endless, really.
Yeah. Nowadays,
Um, yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I
So
mean,
yeah,
thank
I might
you.
just
Yeah.
try to get. Oh, sorry. My bad. No, you go. You go.
Are you sure? No, I feel bad interrupting.
No. I'm just blah blah. Blah
Okay.
blahing, just talking for talking. Just go on, go on.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
All your
Hong
knowledge is
Kong
great to
cinema
talk to you.
appreciation. Sorry, Hong Kong cinema appreciation is a really good platform, and I thank you for. I follow your. I'm subscribed to your YouTube channel, obviously,
Oh
and
well,
I'm
thank
on
you.
IG. I follow you, of course, and occasionally you would pop up with stuff that I never heard of. and I'm serious.
Oh wow.
Um,
Well,
one of your recent videos, what's it called? Breakfast Vampire. I've never seen that.
yeah, that I mean, I actually, I owe that to Arna because that was a movie he told me about.
Ah,
And then I went and found it. Yeah. And it was really good. I really liked it. Yeah. So but yeah, it's been fun. I mean, honestly, when I started the Instagram account, I really just started for fun, and my goal was to get like I think it was like 2,500 followers was my goal. And so
hmm.
yeah, everything else was just kind of an accident. So now here we are. Um, Lo
Well,
and
great
behold, yeah.
job. Great job. I support you. I support your platform, and I appreciate your dedication to the Hong Kong cinema. Thank you.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it's been such a big influence in my life, so it's been really great to get to do this. And kind of, I honestly just accidentally stumbled upon this huge community of people online. So it's been really wonderful. It's been great meeting people like you and Arna and getting all these amazing stories about everything. So I appreciate
Uh-huh.
the chance to be part of it all.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for having me. We'll be in touch, and eventually, if we have another topic that we should cover together, just let me know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you're up for it, I'm always ready to do more.
Absolutely.